Pitch is something that you are sharing a story with the audience. You're connecting with the audience and trying to get them interested in what you're doing, right? And that's the purpose of a pitch. Business plan, on the other hand, is a document which is more like, your detailed financials, your business model, your demos, and everything that goes into that, which you will be sharing, in a PPT or a Word document with your potential investors, right? So, pitch is just there to engage with the people, get them interested in what you're doing, and try to give them a flavor why they should be buying your story in the first place, right? So it's more of an art than science, to be honest, because I can give you theoretical frameworks, which I'll come and talk about anyways, but I think it's an art of storytelling, which you guys have to master, right? It's not just putting 5-10 slides there and saying, okay, this is my pitch, this is what I'm doing. It has to be more than that. Everything has a story around it, right? And that is something you guys have to master. Key elements that a good pitch should have, and that's the framework we've been using at T Labs in helping our startups get ready for demo days, get ready for their customer presentation, get ready for their press releases. So these are the 10 elements that we consider are essential to building your pitch, in creating that story, and making sure the thread is not lost along the presentation, right? So I'll cover each one of them one by one, so it shouldn't take very long. So I'll come to the elevator pitch first. So elevator pitch is the starting, when you come to the stage, it's your title slide with your startup name on it. And you start off by saying, okay, this is me and this is what I'm doing. Then there is an elevator pitch. I don't know how many people heard about elevator pitch. I'm sure everybody has, right? So it's a pitch, 30-second pitch. It was coined from the fact that if you are with a CEO and an elevator, if you get stuck there, and if you want to communicate or get that CEO engaged in what you're doing, you have 30 seconds before it reaches to the floor that the CEO wants to go, and you have to grab their attention and get them interested. So that's the whole purpose of elevator pitch. So the title slide is there to start off by saying something which is engaging to me as an audience, right? Let's take example of the video. So the guy DoorDash, he started off by saying that we are building, revolutionizing the local delivery network, right? Something like that, right? Oh, so you're doing a startup, right? Right back. Can you give me a quick tagline about you? I mean, if you were to introduce what you're doing to me, I am complete layman, I don't understand any tech language. How would you pitch it and engage me?
We are building cross-platform games specifically targeted towards an edutainment sector.
What is edutainment sector?
Edutainment would be something related to entertainment and education.
Again, I mean, that's not common language,
not exactly,
right? So I want to hear things which I can relate to, right? So try to leave that, the first impression, which is like attention grabbing from the audience perspective, right? And that's the purpose of elevator pitch. So you shouldn't spend more than 10, 15, 20 seconds on that, but use plain English, no buzzwords, no social, local, mobile, app, that's not something that normal people understand, right? So think about that language. So I put this tagline here, Google, for example. Look how simple that is. Anything on the internet, just come and find here. That's it. Right? I think that's, so the official tagline is slightly different to that, but this is basically, the pitch that anybody can relate to, right? So once you opened on a positive note, a powerful note, the next thing is, the first thing you need to talk about is, what is the problem that you're solving, right? What is the pain point that you're trying to address with your solution? So try to give, again, be as clear as possible in terms of, this is specific area that I'm looking at. This is what typical customer looks like, and this is where, they are struggling to and this is where the pain point is, so that audience can immediately understand, okay, what problem are you trying to solve? Don't jump straight into your business model, don't jump straight into your traction. I want to understand, what is it that you're trying to solve. So if I again take that example, your example, entertainment sector, we're trying to build cross-platform gaming solution, right? But what is the problem you're trying to solve?
The problem basically is that the market currently of the entertainment sector is very fragmented. There are few players who are based out of USA and who are based out of Israel who are doing this kind of stuff, but there's no big global Indian company who is targeting this kind of problem. But if you talk about Southeast Asia, right, so there's a huge market potential for that. And it is very hard for the people who are actually based out of some developed countries to get localized content delivered to the targeted audience. I mean, it's all buzzword.
Yeah, exactly. So as I said, it has to be much more. So again, I'll go back to that video example. Right? So that guy started out by saying, imagine, right now this is what you guys have in terms of your delivery solution, right? You don't get deliveries in time. You don't get, localized restaurants delivered to you on time. So he stated out those 2 or 3 key points, pain points, very clearly upfront, so that any normal human being would be able to understand, what.
But how do you actually distill it down to make it so simple? Because in our minds, we are developers, we understand the tech behind it, we also understand a little bit about what are other products not doing. But how do you actually crystallize what's the process?
So the process is obviously, as I said, it's not science. It is more art than science. You have to understand from the other person's perspective, right? You have to talk to this guy.
Rather, the end user can probably, if you put yourself in the shoes of the end user, so probably you can understand that where is the pain area which you are trying to address.
So there is a reason why you are starting up this thing, right? You must have encountered some problem. That's why you came up with this particular solution. Go back to that fundamental, right? It's easy, like Arpit said, it's easy to get lost in that, coding and programming and sort of building your business model around. You do not relate to that fundamental, that you started off your business with. So try to crystallize that every time you're talking to somebody, before you talk to somebody. Make sure that, that pain point is so simple, that you can communicate to somebody, independently, and the guys will get it, regardless of how difficult the concept is.
And your pitch was, I don't think we understood who exactly the customer is. And a pitch always starts with who really is the customer. And possibly the reason why so many startups fail is that they don't really define their customer properly, and even if they had, I mean, what we didn't understand, first of all, is who exactly is your customer, and then what is the customer's problem. So if you don't define the customer in the beginning part of your pitch, so for food, he specifically mentioned that 70% of people who are outside the deliverable geographical area, that was very, very clearly mentioned, because if he hadn't said that, would we have understood? We would have thought delivery, anybody delivers, right? So why we bothered? We wouldn't even have that, and that's a fundamental fact which he presented. Then he went on to talk about the delivery, without which we probably wouldn't have figured out what is the service doing.
No, that's a good point. I mean, thanks for taking up that example, because he was very specific. So delivery solutions exist, right, in cities. What he was talking about is very, very specific problem or pain point for people who do not have access to those services. And he gave it very, clear example. There is 70% of people who do not fall in that sort of delivery geography. So they do not have any particular service delivering to them, and that's where we come in, right? Everybody with me? Okay. So once you've explained, so what is the pain point that you're trying to solve, and and what is a typical customer looks like to you, the next step is to understand the magnitude of that problem, magnitude of that pain point, right? So market size is nothing but trying to understand, how much of your target segment or whatever sort of product you're developing, how much of that is applicable to a certain strata of the customer base that you're sort of addressing. So it gives the comfort of to the investors or to the audience that whatever you're trying to solve, it's actually a big problem, So again, here it's more about that need versus want thing, right? So maybe out of 100%, if you're saying, my solution will, so the pain point is traveling from here to the hostel, it's a pain point for 100% of the students, right? So my market is like fairly massive compared to saying, I can start a limousine service, right, from here to hostels, and that will be taken up by, let's say, 5% of the total audience, so I'm just trying to sort of gauge the magnitude of that problem, right? So again, communicating that to people will also give the investors comfort that, look, you're trying to solve at least a massive market, right? So again, there are multiple ways of how you calculate your market size. You can do bottoms up, like figuring out how many people are there. You can do. So the next step is, so you've stated the problem. You stated, okay, this is the magnitude of the problem. But tell me, is there any alternative solution that exists right now which is trying to address the same problem, or at least something on the periphery of that problem, right? And again, that gives investors, so this is more from investor perspective, because it gives them comfort that whatever you're doing, right, there are not other solutions that exist who kind of are attempting the same thing or kind of fall in the same domain, or you guys haven't done your research properly and you missed on existing solution and you're trying to build something again. So the point is understanding why your competition is not doing exactly what you're doing is very important. Or if you don't have any competitors, why don't you have competitors? Understanding that is also very important, right? So people often, so when we meet startups, we often hear the statement, oh, this is the first, nobody else is doing this thing, so we are the unique first time. And that really baffles us, because that to us as investors means that the person hasn't done the research properly, right?
And if it's indeed true, then there's a market for it.
Then there is no, so either way, so if there is nobody out there who's doing it, that also means that it might be very, very difficult to crack this market. People may have attempted this before and are not, haven't been successful in taking it further. Or if there are other competitors that exist who are trying to work on the periphery, what is it that they will have to do to actually come and solve this problem, right? So understanding that landscape, being clear about where you stand, position yourself in the market is very important, and try to understand why whatever you're trying to solve is very unique from your competitors, right? Then comes the interesting part. So till now, as an audience, you have engaged people, you've conveyed, this is the problem I'm trying to solve, this is how big the problem is, right? But wait, this is where I come in. I've built this brilliant solution, brilliant product which addresses this pain point and that solves customer's problem in this way. And this is where you can show your demo, you can show your screenshots or whatever you guys have built, and say, okay, this is exactly how my solution works, and this is exactly how it addresses that pain point. So in that video example, the guy stated that magnitude of the problem itself, and then he started explaining, okay, this is what we built. He gave a quick demo of his app and his website, and said you can place orders, and this is how it works. Very simple. Agreed? Yeah. So once you've communicated what you have been trying to solve and what you've built so far, and why it solves the problem, as an investor, I'm thinking, okay, this is clear to me. I know the problem exists. I know whatever solution they've developed, it solves the problem. But where is the business in it, right? Can this be converted into a commercial model, right? And that's where you talk about, by the way, this is how we plan to monetize it or scale it, right? So as a business model, I'm only interested in 4 fundamental parameters, right? So you have to do your research and figure out whatever that you've been working on, it's driving you towards figuring out these 4 fundamental things. In layman's language, number one is your the customer segment, right? Who is the customer? Number two is what is your offering? What are you trying to sell to that customer? Number three, through what channels you're trying to sell it to customer, that is your marketing channels. And number four, at what price you're selling it to the customer. So if you have figured out these four things, you've figured out the business model. In sophisticated language we call it business model, but that's essentially what it is, right? So now to me as an investor, I get the comfort that, okay, you guys have thought about it and there is a clear business model that I can see in this startup, right? And then you take a step further and say, oh, by the way guys, we've taken this business model and we've implemented it, and this is the result we've achieved so far, right? So we've signed up so many customers, we've made this much revenue, and we've sold these many products, right? So that's what I want to see as a proof of concept that this business model actually works. Right? So till this point, I mean, again,
no traction. What if I have no traction?
If you have no traction, then as an investor, I'll be skeptic as to whether this thing will actually work. So I'm mainly talking about beyond accelerator sort of stage. People will definitely like to see some traction before they invest in you. But even at accelerator level, what I mean by traction is more about validation. That there is a problem and there is a solution which actually works in the market. So I'm not talking about thousands and thousands of downloads or users. I'm not talking about hundreds and hundreds of clients in terms of B2B. What I'm talking about is there is some proof or validation that whatever problem you're trying to solve and whatever solution you've built, it serves the purpose.
What if you're raising capital specifically to build the capabilities to solve the problems?
I wouldn't consider that, honestly, as an investor. And so if you're saying that give me money and I want to build the solution, that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to put your own blood and sort of sweat into the solution first, as to give me the comfort that you've thought about the problem and you're willing to take the plunge and do something about it before I put my money into it. But if you come straight to me asking, I want to develop this product, give me money, I doubt if people will respond, right? So if it is an app you're trying to build, I would like to see data at least from a reasonable sample, let's say 500 to 1,000 users who have used the app, and I want to see that engagement, how they're behaving with the app, before I say, okay, this solution is actually solving a problem, right? When it talk to B2B clients, I would like to see at least a couple of interactions with the B2B companies who have suggested that, yes, this problem exists and we would take this solution. Right? That level of validation is good enough. Again, it varies from business to business, but that sort of level I'm looking at. That's for acceleration scale. Like if you approached a VC down the value chain, you will realize that they are looking for, let's say, 50 to 100 B2B clients, right? And let's say few 100,000 downloads.
By 500,000.
Yeah, depending on again the nature of the startup, before they put their money in, because it's a bigger capital ask and it's a bigger gamble they are taking. So obviously they would like to see more validation before they put their money, right? Any question on that?
How do you see this slide being changed with respect to the current scenario after the WhatsApp deal? So with people more talking about a customer acquisition story rather than a revenue model. Then I have signups, I have traction, I'm still figuring out the revenue. So how do VC respond to that level that okay, you figure out the money later, but you are showing me some traction? Is the trend changing these days?
Well, trend, I mean, there is obviously a subtle shift in terms of how VCs perceive that sort of startup, but I don't think there's a fundamental shift in the way the business is still operating, right? So if I'll take your example, WhatsApp's example, or any other B2C app, for that matter, who are not monetizing that, what I would like to see is at least a path to revenue, right? That in 1 year time, 2 years time, once you've got these many users, then what sort of revenue models can you deploy? Is it ad supported? Is it subscription based? Is it freemium model? Right. So depending on that, I'm fairly confident that there is a path to monetization for this particular.
But I think he also said something correct that revenues aren't really always necessary. So an acquisition can be for a purpose which is strategic. So for instance, when Microsoft bought Hotmail, and I really don't know what they had in mind, but primarily what we were talking about, and I think that was in '98, what we were talking about at that point of time was that it was to establish a presence on the web. That would not get you revenues, but it would get you a certain amount of exposure, which in turn, gets you revenues. And the same with, say, Skype. I mean, Skype doesn't really make money, does it? I mean, nobody.
There are different reasons for
Yeah.
acquisition, right? So you want to expand your user base. You want to probably explore the synergies between the two entities and see if your better product can be made better, or your revenue, or your customer base could be widened, right? So there could be multiple reasons. But in a B2C case, again, depending on the nature of the startup, you may see monetization happening right now, or it may take like few years before you start monetizing that. But at least as an investor, I want to see that path to monetization, right? That there might be a commercial model. Are we doing time?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
I think we're almost there. So, till this point, you've convinced me that there is something in the making here, right? You've told me a good story. You've told me the clear problem. You've told me a very, very good solution. You showed me the demo, it works. Then you went on and talked about, okay, this is the business model. This is how I plan to monetize this. And by the way, here are the numbers to prove that it works. So you sold it to me. Do I need to know anything else as an investor?
Price.
So okay, I'm convinced now this works. I mean, I'm with you guys. There is a business in the making. Now tell me how much you're looking to raise. Right? What is the ask? Is it $500,000, $1 million, or maybe 100K or whatever, right? And why do you need that? So everything is fine till this point. And then you talk about, okay, this is what I intend to do with this money, right? So I've proven my Uber example in SFO. Now I want to take it global. I want to implement in other cities within US, right? And I need X amount of capital to sort of scale up my operations. So you're asking money for scaling up, right? That this is where I want to take my business. So as an investor, I now understand, okay, I buy the business, right? I buy whatever you've done. And if I give you, like, say, X capital, you will now take it to the next level. And, I can see that clear business direction there, right? And so that's what goes here, right? Last, but probably the most important part. So I understand everything in terms of business, right? And believe you me, in most cases, it's not about what you've told me so far. It's more about who you are, right? Who you are as an individual and as a team. So I am ultimately backing people, right? And I want to understand, what are they made of, right? What's their background? What's the credibility these guys come with, and why should I consider them? That they are the best team to execute this business going forward. Right? So you need to give me comfort that this is the best team that can execute this business plan now. Right? So talk about yourself, talk about your fellow founders, talk about your early employees, and convince me that you've got what it takes in you to actually make it happen. What's each person's role, and how come they are the best person to execute whatever they do.
Like now he gave the example that he is having a really good team, people from really good companies that he is having in his team. The thing is, I also have a team with me, but the thing is, like, my strategy was to hire freshers so that I can teach them how to work good. To start with myself, I started coding in 9th class, and I sold my first software application in 9th class. It was a hotel management software.
Wow.
And
I'm already sold on your team.
I actually, during my engineering, I had 17 clients in Panipat for the office automation systems, and I developed an application for everybody for Optak in 2001, which they are still using. I don't have to do anything, so it's very stable. They can create their own code. So things like that. So I have developed my own system. Like I am working on we are working on .NET, but over .NET I have developed a separate platform. Like if we need to create a websites, web applications for, let's say I need a CRM based web application. So we have that platform using which we can develop a complete CRM in a week. If I need an e-commerce website, I have another library of my own, which I can use to develop e-commerce system in, let's say, 10 days. Fully functional, fully tested. We have already done that. And the core thing is like what I and now my 3 of my team members, what we like to work on is rather technical stuff. We are working on a project where, if you remember in Avengers, Tony started something like this on a mobile file and everything goes on the screen. We are working on something so that our desktop, the laptop camera can detect our fingers, and when we do something like this, it should go on the projector behind it.
Like Pranam is 367.
Not that much. So we like to work on that. This is not any client's project, but we are like pushing our limits. So I just want to ask, these people, they were totally freshers 1.5 years back. They are all from Satya Engineering College, Rohtak, which is, we do not have any name in engineering, okay? But like, they are now working by themselves till 2 or 3 in the morning. We are very hard worker. I have to leave development because I have to take management more seriously. So how these things somebody can sell to an investor?
Human being as well. If you talk to anybody, like you got impressed with the pedigree, you yourself mentioned that. So I wouldn't say that that is definitely a yes, even if with that pedigree I'll invest in him. And it's a definite no if you came to me and pitched with your pedigree. Right? There is obviously, some perception, there is obviously some advantage, that this people is coming with a credibility which gives to investors. But that by no means suggests that people with who do not have that sort of background are not fit for running a startup, or we probably won't invest in that. That is never a reason for rejecting. So for us, what is more important, and I'm sure for other investors as well, and Arpit can pitch in, it's more important to understand the entrepreneur's mindset. It's their attitude towards running the startup rather than their skill set. So skill set is just one of the pieces of the puzzle, right? It's more about what are they made up of, how strong are they mentally, right? Do they